Thailand is one of the most biodiverse countries in Southeast Asia due to its variety of ecosystems, habitats, and landscapes. The forest understory is arguably the most rich in fauna and flora, creating niche habitats for numerous organisms. In this video, I will guide you through my attempt to recreate this habitat for a species of gecko that is native to Thailand. My name is Kayla Roach. Welcome to my channel. I hope you enjoy the video. The first step to this vivarium build was to create a custom background. I used the 12 by 12 by 18 inch Exoterra for this project. I wiped down the glass with a diluted vinegar solution just to make sure that I had a clean surface to work on. The next step was to brainstorm where I wanted the pieces of hardscape to be situated. Once I settled on a placement that I was pleased with, I used the Great Stuff Pond and Stone spray foam in order to anchor all the pieces into place. Once the foam had cured, I flipped the enclosure so that I could repeat those same few steps on the side. I repeated those steps once more in order to finish the third side and have a cohesive background. Once all the foam had cured, I began carving it, mimicking the shape and texture of a rocky outcrop. This is Drylock. Drylock is a type of masonry waterproofer made of cement and latex paint, and it will serve two very important functions in this build. First, it will seal the background, making it more water resistant, which is very important for this project since the enclosure will contain high levels of humidity. It will also contribute to the overall aesthetic of this enclosure. I covered some of the hardscape with some masking tape in order to avoid accidentally painting it. I used a small paintbrush in order to work some Drylock into all the little nooks and crannies in the spray foam. Once the first layer was dry, it was time to add another coat of Drylock. I wanted the second layer to be a different color, so I took some brown acrylic paint and mixed it in with the Drylock. By doing this, I was able to create more depth and detail in the background. Once the second coat had dried, it was time to add some more refined details to the background in order to make it look more realistic and rock-like. Once again, I mixed some brown and black acrylic paint with the Drylock. These colors allowed me to shade and highlight the rock structure. I then mixed some green acrylic paint with the Drylock in order to give the appearance of moss, algae, or lichen growing on the rocks. It was now time to address the other side of the enclosure. This side of the enclosure was handled a little differently than the other side with the Drylock, since I was going for a different look on each side. I applied 100% silicone to the dried spray foam and used my finger to work it into all the little crevices. While the silicone was still wet, I applied some peat moss to it and pressed it firmly into place. Once the silicone had cured, I propped the enclosure upright and brushed off any excess. I then used a vacuum to directly remove any loose peat moss that may not have adhered properly to the background. As the finishing touch, I embellished the background using some preserved sphagnum moss. Once again, I used 100% silicone to adhere the moss to the background. My goal with this design was to mimic the base of a tree meeting a rocky outcrop, and using this moss really helped tie everything together and made the design look more unified. I scraped away some excess silicone, gave the bottom a quick cleaning, and it was now time to set up the vivarium. Starting with the drainage layer, I used Hydroton, followed by a piece of fiberglass window screen to act as a barrier between the soil and the drainage layer. The first ingredient in my substrate blend was the Exoterra substratum, which is a volcanic substrate that is highly nutritious and very beneficial to plants. I then added a pre-made blend consisting of cypress mulch, peat moss, black earth and sand. And finally, I added some sphagnum moss into the substrate blend. Next, I added some more hardscape, starting with this rock. This is the same type of stone that I used in the background, so I thought it would make a great transition piece from the background to the bottom of the enclosure. I then placed some branches in a manner that made them resemble tree roots. I then added a couple cork grounds that will serve as hides for the gecko. It was now time to bring this enclosure to life. I started by planting a Peperomia puteolata, followed by a Syngonium wendlandii, a Pilea involucrata, the beautiful Peleonia pulchra, Syngonium batique, some good old pothos, and finally some Ficus pumila. I then added some smaller branches to create more intricate details. For the water bowl, I used this small water dish made by Exoterra. The botanicals that I used in this vivarium were provided by 520 Buse. Botanicals are a staple part of a sustainable vivarium for multiple reasons. Not only do they create a more realistic and enriching environment for the inhabitant, they're also a great source of nutrition and shelter for the microfauna coexisting in the vivarium. Speaking of microfauna, the first invertebrates that I added into the vivarium were springtails. Springtails are very small arthropods, and they have a very important function in this vivarium. Since they primarily feed on decaying organic matter, they will contribute to the process of natural decomposition within this vivarium. The next invertebrates I added were powder blue isopods. These isopods are land-dwelling terrestrial crustaceans, and they have a very similar function as the springtails do. Due to the distinctiveness in their size, springtails being much smaller and isopods growing to be much larger, they cohabit together very well because they have the ability to occupy different microhabitats within the same general habitat. I fixed some plastic saran wrap beneath the lid of the enclosure to help retain some humidity. And now for the moment we've all been waiting for. This is a female Cyrtodactylus zebraicus. This species goes by a plethora of common names, but they are most known as the Thai Bent Toed Gecko or the Thai bow-fingered gecko. As their common names suggest, this species is native to Thailand. They were previously believed to be a subspecies of the Cyrtodactylus peguensis. However, in 2018, they were elevated to full species status as the Cyrtodactylus zebraicus. That concludes this video. Thank you so much for watching. I'm very pleased with how this vivarium turned out, and I'm even more thrilled to be able to keep such a unique species of gecko. A special thank you to Mike and Bree of the Jungle Vault for trusting me with this gecko. If you enjoyed this video, you already know what to do. Just give it a like and subscribe if you aren't already. It goes such a long way. I wish you all the best, and I'll see you in my next video.